welcome to episode number 38 of the Who Am I podcast with the Southside Church of Christ. This is where we take the time to consider our identity as Christians and what that means in the world in which we live today. I am Brian Dill, and here with me, as always, is the astounding Jackson Wells.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. We also are very excited to have with us today Brother Ricky Burse. Welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Jackson, it's good to be with you.
Well, we are excited about what this episode holds for us, so let's go ahead and get this started.
So, we're going to open with 5 somewhat random questions. I hope your answers are good. No pressure here.
Right.
So
no
if
pressure.
they're random questions, then it can be random answers.
That's right.
They don't
Yes.
necessarily have to match.
They don't have. Yeah, I can ask you a question, and you can give me an answer to a completely different question.
We've never had anybody ask that before.
That would be perfect. Right. Let's see. Wrong answers only.
Right.
What is your favorite sport and team associated with that sport?
Well, I feel like having walked into Brian's office and seeing all this good stuff, I need to be honest and match that one up. So, probably my favorite sport is college football, and having grown up in West Tennessee, the University of Tennessee is still my favorite team.
That's a good one. I respect that.
Yeah.
Right. I remember seeing one of the pictures that you sent us was, I guess, from your office, and I could tell that there was a picture that had a Smokey on there with the football, and I was like, oh, okay, I see what this is.
I do happen to be a Cardinal baseball fan too. So
yeah, was last year they beat Alabama. What was that like for you?
Listen, man, it was pretty exciting because it had been a long time. I think it was 17, maybe 18 years,
17, 16 years.
something
Wow.
along there since Tennessee had beat Alabama. So it was pretty nice to finally get one of those.
Right.
Maybe it'll happen again.
All right, so my first question is, what is your favorite kind of ice cream?
Favorite kind of ice cream? That's interesting because I've not really been a big ice cream eater my whole life.
Okay.
Until we moved to West Kentucky in New Pathways. I found this local place in Lone Oak called Parker's Drive-In.
Okay.
And they have soft serve ice cream that's Prairie Farms ice cream.
Okay.
And I've eaten more ice cream in the last 10 years than I have my whole life. But I get the chocolate and vanilla swirl.
Okay.
Soft serve there.
Okay.
That's the church camp special right there.
Right, that's right.
Chocolate vanilla swirl.
Yeah, exactly.
Kids go crazy over that.
I mean, you really can't go wrong. Chocolate and vanilla is kind of staples of the ice cream world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We recently had our ice cream social, and I was actually blown away with the vanilla that I ate. It was
really?
some of the best vanilla ice cream I've had in a long time.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
That's good.
Normally I don't eat vanilla, but that was a good moment for vanilla.
Yeah, I was thinking that, it's so hot. It's that time of year. Everybody's been eating ice cream and all that kind of stuff. So I was curious.
All right, my next question. Who would you say has influenced you the most in your life?
Yeah. Well, probably like a lot of other folks, there have been several, but my dad would be, the most influential. Dad was preaching when I was a young boy growing up, and he encouraged me as a youngster to, get up in front of people, do a lesson, lead a song, prayers, those kind of things, and watching his example, and then all that encouragement, and then Dad's had cancer a number of years now, and watching him deal with that the way that he has, learned just a lot of valuable lessons from his life and teaching and encouragement.
Wow, that's a great answer.
Right.
If only I could convince my son to get up in front of people and do anything.
So you might find this interesting, Brian. A number of years ago, Mom and Dad were moving, and I was helping, and we were going through some boxes in the attic, and we came across a box that had something like Ricky's sermons or Ricky's lessons.
Oh, wow.
And
right.
Dad had kept some outlines and different things, and we found one in there that was dated in 1966. I was 7.
Oh, wow.
And Dad was preaching at a little church over in northwest Tennessee, and he had helped me get a lesson together. And one Sunday night, put a box behind the podium, and I stood up on it, and probably all of 3 minutes,
right.
Preached my first sermon. But it helped
That's
me.
great.
I did that a number of times, and we found several of those dated over the next 4 or 5 years. When I was 6, 7, 10, 12.
Right.
And
Wow.
I got used to being in front of people. And,
Yes, exactly.
Later, as an adult, it never really bothered me to, to get up and speak and
right.
be a part of, that church life and worship.
Sure.
All right. Are we going to? You got
I think
another
it's my
question?
turn.
It is your turn. Sorry.
Be quiet.
I can't keep counting.
Okay. So as we just mentioned right before we started recording here, that my family is in the process of moving to South Carolina, and I imagine that you've moved a number of times in your lifetime. What is the worst thing about having to move?
Well, probably packing up all the trinkets that my wife has.
Is she going to hear this episode?
Well, I probably won't let her listen to it, but she's an only child, and
Okay.
both of her grandmothers had antiques and different things
wow.
like that.
Right.
So they were all handed down to her, and she loves that kind of stuff. So she's got cabinets and shelves that have, these plates and dishes and cups and
Right.
glasses, and this little thing that her grandmother got, from her grandfather when he was in Japan in the war.
Okay. Wow.
So, just thinking about, man, you got to wrap all that stuff, pack it
Yes.
all up, box it all up, and then
Yes.
it's marked, fragile, and be
Right.
really careful loading it into a truck or trailer. So there are a lot of more serious things,
Right.
that are challenging about a move, but
That's definitely the most tedious.
It is.
it
is frustrating.
Just, one of those that kind of drives you crazy. But
Yes.
on the other side, you always, people that you've connected with, relationships that you've built. It's hard to say so long because, you won't see those folks as
Right.
often. You
Right.
can't just run over and have lunch with them or visit a little while. And
Exactly.
that's a tough part of moving, especially if you've been in a place a number of years and
Right.
built close relationships with people.
Right. And how, you preached full time for a period of time. So how many times have you had to move?
Yeah. So in 30 years, we moved 3 times.
Okay, great.
So we were at a couple of places for pretty long periods of time, 12 years and almost 10 years and whatever the different 8 there. Have to do quick math.
Right.
So, not too many times. And then, of course, we moved to New Pathways in 2013 and been there a little over 10 years now.
Okay, great.
So you're doing the Lord's work. Everybody needs a break, though. When you take vacation, what would you say your favorite or best vacation spot is?
Man, best vacation spot. So we like the mountains pretty well.
Yeah.
It's interesting. 5 years ago, our first grandson was born. 5 years ago in May, and then 2 years ago, February, a second one. So we've been on 2 trips in the last 5 years to the beach.
Okay.
And, beach is okay, but for me, it's kind of like, an hour out there in the hot sun is long enough.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lay out in my, thong like some folks that do there on the beach. No
Right.
Speedos for me. So You know,
Can only
but
imagine.
you know, it's you don't want to get that image
Yeah,
in your head, right? Yes. So thanks. So now you're going to have to say, boy, we'll never invite him back again. Give us that kind of image. But, you know, sitting on the balcony, enjoying the sound of the beach, you know, watching the grandkids play there and those kind of things. It's enjoyable to be with them and, you know, our daughter and son-in-law and relax there. But I'd choose, for my benefit, probably the mountains, creekside, and you know, a little hiking and trying not to run into any of the bears.
There you go. Now, when you say mountains, you're from West Tennessee?
Yeah.
So, are you a Smoky Mountain or Rocky Mountain?
Yeah,
like which one?
Smoky Mountain guy.
Okay.
You know, that's where when I was growing up, when I lived at home, young boy. You know, that's where Mom and Dad took us many times over the years, and been to the Rocky Mountains once, but just familiarity and you know, proximity.
Right, for sure. All right. Well, as we continue on with our episode this week, we are getting into the meat of the week right now. And one of the main reasons that we are asking the question that we are today is because of the work, Ricky, that you do with New Pathways for Children. And you said you've been there for 10 years?
Yeah, a little over 10 years.
A little over 10 years, and you're the is it director? Is that what it's called?
Executive director.
Executive director.
My official title.
Okay.
Which means that, you know, just about anything and everything comes across my way.
Right, I bet.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great things going on there. We've heard a lot of good things about continued growth and plans for another structure, right? And working toward that. And tell us a little bit about kind of just how things are going there.
Yeah, sure. Well, New Pathways for Children is a private referral child care agency. We are a Christian agency as well. So by being private referral means, you know, we don't work with the state foster care system.
Right.
So we're working directly with parent or custodian of the children. They give us guardianship, and we bring children in who need to be cared for, maybe a family situation. They're just not able to take care of them. We just got a little boy whose mother's 67 and a number of issues around just her ability to take care of him. So we operate 2 group homes and 1 family model home now. We have 24 children. They age in range. Their age range is 18 months to 16.
Okay.
We have 13 boys and 11 girls in those 3 homes. And you mentioned our growth and expansion. We just started building another home. Footing's been poured, and some of the rough end work has gotten started, and we're hoping to get that finished maybe early next year to be able to get children in it.
Fantastic. That'll be great.
That is awesome. So you work with kids pretty often, and that is why we have decided to have the episode that we're going to talk about today. But the question that we're asking is, am I a child? And not in a sense of, am I childish? Because I've definitely been called a child before. Probably happened last week when I was visiting Mom and Dad.
Right.
But we're talking about, am I a child from a Christ perspective. The passage that we're going to refer to is Matthew chapter 18, verses 1 through 4. And I'm going to read that real quick. Matthew 18, verses 1 through 4. This is what it says. And the heading in my Bible is, Who is the greatest? And what Jesus says is astounding. At that time the disciples came to Jesus, saying, Who is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven? And calling to him a child, he put him in the midst of them, and said, Truly I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Whoever humbles himself like this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. who is the greatest? A child.
Right.
So when we always ask the question at the end. So am I a child? Like Jesus says, if you're the greatest, yeah, right.
If you want to be the greatest in the
Yeah.
kingdom, you got to be like a child. Of course, that seems to have all kinds of implications,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's all kinds of directions that I know my mind goes with that. But I really wanted to ask you, Ricky, if what goes through your mind when you hear that idea, especially with your experience with working with kids and everything. What are some things that come to mind for you with that passage?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the first things is just how much Jesus valued children.
Yes.
Especially against the backdrop kind of where our current culture is and how little value is placed on children, protecting them, the value of their life, the value of a child in the womb.
Right, right.
There are just a lot of contrast because, it's obvious from what Jesus said that he places a high value on children, so much so that he equates the greatness in the kingdom with a child. And, it points to the importance, the significance of how he feels. And, in a little bit of a parallel passage over in Mark 10, when people are bringing children to Jesus,
Yes.
the disciples step in. It's interesting, the disciples are here asking the question, who's
Yes.
the greatest? And we know from another passage in Mark, they've been arguing about it.
Right.
And now, they're going to get a final answer from Jesus. Well, is it me or is it my brother or, one of these other scoundrels? Who is it? And Jesus completely throws them off. But in that scene where people are bringing children, it's the disciples who rebuke the children, who want to hinder them.
Right.
And it makes Jesus angry. And he tells the disciples, get out of the way, don't hinder these kids. And then he says basically the same thing about how valuable and important and significant they are to God, to him, and in the kingdom. So, that's one of the things is just, the significance and the value that God places on children, and then how they see the world so differently.
Right.
They marvel at the creation of God.
Yes.
They marvel
Yes.
at the wonder. And, unfortunately for a lot of us, as we get older, we miss the sunrise and sunset every day. We miss the mud puddle that,
Right.
the child wants to run and jump in
Right.
and play in the rain, and just those things that are all around us that God has provided and blessed that they don't miss. They pause long enough to relish those.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because we've kind of taken for granted, those things after having seen it so many times.
Yeah.
We expect those things,
Yeah.
and then we don't relish it the way that a child does.
Yeah, absolutely. And y'all are hitting at the next question. We're not children. Jesus values children. How do we become more like children? How do we have that childlike wonder or just that mindset?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the ways is we have to kind of be real honest and look at ourselves and say, I'm not really that important. I'm not the greatest. I'm not
Right.
the most significant, which is, just a little bit of humility on our
Yes.
part. It is
Absolutely.
recognizing where we fit into God's purpose and plan and what he wants. And it doesn't make us insignificant. It just helps us to recognize, kind of our right place,
Sure.
where we fit in. I think one of the other things, Jackson, is maybe spend a little bit more time with children. Mm-hmm. In our work at New Pathways, I get a chance to spend a lot of time with children, a lot of different ages, a lot of different points of development with them. And, to watch them sometimes with the compassion they have for one another or the questions that they ask, or the things that interest them, or their gifts or talents. We've got a little boy who's 7 right now in one of our homes, and it's astounding how good an artist he is at
Really?
7.
Wow.
He can look at a picture and then draw it, and it's amazing. I can't draw a stick person.
Right,
You know?
right.
I mean, it just, you don't want me on your team if you're playing, the game there where you got to draw
Pictionary or something.
Pictionary. Yeah, you don't want me because I can't draw, and so spending time with children in a variety of settings, just watching, the wonder that is there when they see and experience things. Watch them chase a frog across the yard and
Right.
catch it, or marvel when an airplane goes up. I mean, how many times does one fly over and we hardly notice?
Right. Right.
But they're looking and marveling at that and all of those things. So I think just spending some time around and with children helps us kind of see, okay, maybe some of that humility and that trust and that innocence that's a
Right.
part of their life, and the wonder and marveling that they're doing of all the things that are going on might help us to recapture a little bit broader vision of the kingdom and what God really wanted us to be more like as we follow Jesus.
I wrote down 3 words, and you said 2 of them just then: innocence and trust. When I see a kid, those are 2 things that one, they have innocence. I hope they have trust, whether it be their parent or they're at New Pathways and they trust the people there taking care of them. And reliance is the other word that I thought about. And when we're able to have those 3 things and look to God as the person that we trust or that we are relying on, and we act like a child in His presence, in the sense that we don't have anything without Him, like He's the one that's taking care of us, that definitely helps us be childlike, because we can't take care of ourselves. It all comes from God.
Right. And I think that one of the things that happens is, over the years, I think it starts with the humility and the trust that we start to lose, because we go from recognizing that we're a small part of a really big world to starting to think that the world kind of revolves around me and what I want, and so we let that shift, and then the trust, I think that kind of starts going away as we grow older, and we've been hurt by people, we've been bamboozled by people.
I mean, betrayal simply happens. Yeah.
Right, and so we come upon situations where we don't give people the benefit of the doubt. We assume that people are out to get us, or we buy into conspiracy theories, or all those kinds of things, because we don't trust. And we might feel like it's justified sometimes, but man, look at all of the reasons Jesus was trying to point us toward children, and how rarely we exhibit those qualities with the humility and the trust, relying on God, trusting God. I mean, that's such a difficult thing for us sometimes.
Yeah. Well, we still face the ultimate or big temptation that started with the first human couple is, you should be your own God.
Right.
You should be the one calling all the shots.
That's right.
You should be in charge. And, humanity has wanted to do that from the beginning. It's still the case that, I know better for me than anybody else what I need, what should happen, even God, a lot of times. And, the reality is when we lose that trust and innocence and humility, and we take that approach of, well, I know best and I'm going to be my own God, we make a huge mess,
Right.
And all of us have experienced that in some ways in our own life. But then you look at, a culture of people and the world of people. A big reason that so many things are in such a mess is because of that lack of a childlike trust and humility and reliance and innocence, and looking outside for God to be God and us to be His children.
Yeah. So, am I a child? I think the answer ought to be, in a lot of ways, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Don't be childish, right?
It's too easy for me.
But be childlike, especially in our relationship with God, and the trust and the humility that goes along with that. And I love the suggestion of spending more time around children. Whatever age you are, whatever time of life you're in, or situation, circumstance you find yourself in, I think that can do a lot for us.
Yeah, I went to the jump park on
Yeah,
Sunday
that's
with
right.
the
Yes, you
with
did.
the junior department, and it's not normally something I would have done, but let me tell you, I had a blast.
Right.
And
right.
yeah, it was fun at the jump park, but it was also fun to see the kids smile and laugh and just have a good time.
Right.
Again, like there wasn't anything that was, I mean, I guess they could have broken a leg, but there wasn't anything bad that was going to happen. Like it was just good, clean, innocent fun.
Right.
And sometimes that's really hard to come by.
It is.
Kids are a great source, and as Christians, hopefully we're able to influence them in a positive way.
Yeah.
All right. So we want to first thank all of our listeners for tuning into this week's episode, but we also especially want to thank you, Ricky, for being here today. Thoroughly enjoyed this time that we've had together. Appreciate your insights today.
Well, I've enjoyed being with you. Thanks for having me.
All right. And if you would like to know more about New Pathways for Children, their website is very simple. It is www.npfc.net, as in New Pathways for Children, npfc.net. And go there. They would appreciate your support and your prayers as they continue to do some great things for the children there. Well, we hope that this episode has been one that has been uplifting for you and encouraging for you and helpful as you continue to grow in your identity as a follower of Jesus. Have a blessed day.